To everyone who has watched my previous The First Descendant video, I would like to humbly apologize. I have made a serious and continuous lapse in my judgment, and I do not expect to be forgiven. I'm only making this video so I can set the record straight. In my last video, I said that the Perforator was the best hand cannon in the game when it comes to taking down Colossus, and honestly the best hand cannon in general. And in that video, there were two things that I did that was very wrong and very misguided because I didn't have the proper information. Let me drop the fucking Logan Paul act. Basically speaking, I said two things that were very wrong. The first thing was that I said you should build a crit Perforator. This is wrong. I'll get into that, but firstly, I want to say the second thing I said was that the Perforator was the best hand cannon. This is also wrong. And I'm not going to say that the other hand cannon, the Nazeistras, right? Nazeistras, right? I'm getting that right? Nazeistras?
Nazeistra.
I'm not going to say that the Nazeistra's Devotion is the better hand cannon or better than the Perforator, but it is very, very dependent on what you're doing. So there isn't technically a best hand cannon. It's really all up to the user. So yeah, I want to explain why I think the Nazeistra's Devotion could even sometimes be better than the Perforator. And the reason for that is the unique ability. Nazeistra's unique ability is called Fanaticism. On hitting an enemy's weak point, inflicts the unique
Read, nigga! Read!
On hitting an enemy's weak point, inflicts the unique ability Devotion Mark on the target enemy. On hitting it, don't worry about the second part. The second part doesn't matter. Basically, whenever you hit an enemy's weak point, you inflict the ability Devotion Mark. And what Devotion Mark does is it applies a 30% defense reduction for 3 seconds. Now, of course, this is at the max unique ability level. So at level 1 or at level 0, it'll only be for 10 seconds. But this hand cannon is very easy to farm. I farmed out 4 of them within maybe a day. And that was me being really unlucky. You could probably get this done within a couple hours. But at level 4, at max level, it is a 30% defense reduction that you're applying to the enemy, which means that it's not just a defense reduction for you, but it's a defense reduction for everybody you're playing with. So if you're fighting a Colossus, that's 30% minus defense for you and then your 3 other teammates. That's extremely good, and it could even be classified as better than the Perforator's unique ability, Detect. Detect is on hitting a weak point, inflicts damage to the enemy's shield in proportion to their max shield at a set chance. Everything else doesn't matter. Basically speaking, it has a chance to do extra damage depending on the enemy, and it's completely random whether or not it does extra damage proportionate to its shield, which is where I say the Perforator is slightly worse than the Nazeistra's Devotion, because nobody likes inconsistency, and being inconsistent is very bad, especially for doing very fast boss kills or just getting out really good damage. If your damage is all over the place, then it's really hard to work with. The Nazeistra's Devotion offers a very, very consistent damage scale, and while sometimes it is lower than the Perforator, it is a lot more consistent. So over a span of time, you'll get a lot more damage than with the Perforator. It's more of like a screenshot machine where you can hit really high numbers here and there, but you're not constantly hitting really high numbers. Where with the Nazeistra's Devotion, you won't hit high numbers, but the numbers you do hit, they're not going to be low either, and you'll always be hitting those numbers. Another problem with this gun is if we go look at the base stats for this gun, we see it has a 20% firearm crit rate, a 2x firearm critical hit damage, and a 2.25x weak point damage. That looks really good. Like, that looks extremely good. But then we go and we compare it to the Nazeistra's Devotion. 36% critical rate, 2x firearm critical damage, and a 1.7x weak point damage. By all definitions, the Nazeistra's Devotion is just, it has the better stats. It genuinely does. And yeah, the weak point damage is a little lower than the Perforator, but it makes up for the extremely high crit rate. I want to show you my build on my Perforator. This is a maximum critical hit rate build. I have insight ammo support for the extra crit rate, reload insight for the extra crit rate, better insight for the extra crit rate. I have fatal critical for more crit rate. And then I even have edging shot, which is lowering my firearm attack, but increasing my firearm critical rate by a ton. And I'm still only getting 33% crit rate on my Perforator, which is still lower than a base Nazeistra's Devotion. Now, if we go to my Nazeistra's Devotion, I have the same amount of crit rate, the same amount of critical hit damage, but 3.1x weak point damage. So this does more damage. It just straight up does. The thing is, the only thing that's carrying the Perforator is its unique ability, being able to hit high numbers on enemy shields. That's it. So I think, in my opinion, I was very wrong about the Perforator versus the Nazeistra's Devotion. I genuinely think the Nazeistra's Devotion is better than the Perforator for most scenarios. Now, the second thing I was wrong about, and you're going to see it here. In fact, you've probably already seen it. I built a crit Perforator, and there's two problems with this. First problem, obviously, as you could see, the crit is still worse than a base Nazeistra's Devotion. So it makes no sense to build crit. I should have just built everything into weak point damage. I would have been getting more damage. The second problem is what I said in my last video. What I said was building crit is more versatile for most people because getting a crit is easier than shooting at a weak point. And this is still partly true. However, there's one very, very obvious factor that changes based on person to person. And that's this little guy right here, the guy moving next to VS's head. I'm on mouse and keyboard, meaning 100% of the time, I will be aiming for a target's head, a target's weak point. So it makes no sense for me, a mouse and keyboard player, to be building crit because I'm not going for just body shots. I'm going for weak point. So this should be either a full weak point build or a half weak point, half critical hit build, which is where I really fucked up. I can see the uses of crit on a controller player because on controller, it's a lot harder to aim for headshots. So having more crit rate is a lot better so you can compensate for the damage. But because I'm already on mouse and keyboard and it's a lot easier to aim for headshots, it just makes more sense to build onto weak point. And that's where I really fucked up on my Perforator. So my Perforator, and as you could see, I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 crystallization catalysts at this point. I've used an energy activator. I've kind of full sent into my Perforator and it's kind of really fucked. So yeah, that's a problem. But you know what? That's okay, because now I have the Nazeistra's Devotion, which will probably be the hand cannon I use and the hand cannon I recommend to literally everybody. Now, as you could see, this is exactly how I would build it with maximized weight balance, real life fighter, rifling reinforcement, weak point aiming. Weak point aiming you don't technically need. I just like weak point aiming. You could change this with a different mod that increases weak point. I have consume magazines, weak point quick fire, action and reaction, weak point sight, and have aiming. The last mod I would put on this would probably be one of 3 mods, either better insight, better concentration, or recycling genius or expanded charge. So I guess 4 mods, whatever. In my opinion, I would probably go for better insight so I have a little bit more firearm critical rate. So for the last mod for me would probably be better insight, but this is how I have my Nazeistra's Devotion built. It is definitely better than the Perforator in most case scenarios, which is really upsetting because I really like the design of the Perforator. That's the main reason I got the Perforator, is because I preferred the design of it. It just looks so much cooler than the Nazeistra's Devotion, in my opinion. Like, this looks really badass. But unfortunately, as life would have it, the Nazeistra's Devotion is the better gun, mainly because of the unique ability and the fact that it has just overall better stats. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show off in this video. I wanted to real quickly make this known because I know a lot of people saw that Perforator video, so I want to make sure everybody sees that this is the actual statistics on both of these guns. And I did get quite a few comments saying that the Nazeistra's Devotion is also really, really good. So I got it, I leveled it up, I did all the testing. Yeah, it is very good. And I'm not, like I said before, I'm not going to say one hand cannon is better than the other, because I still think the Perforator has its use case scenarios where you can hit really, really high numbers, and it's probably better for Colossuses. But for everything else, just pick up a Nazeistra's Devotion. It's also extremely easy to farm. I did most of my Nazeistra's Devotion farming in like really early game hard mode, so not a lot of things were really difficult. and the drop rates are really good. So it was very easy for me to farm. The Perforator, you got to do a bunch of shit for the Perforator to farm. That's why I only have one copy of the Perforator, because you have to do a lot of shit to farm the Perforator. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below what you think about the Perforator and the Nazeistra's devotion. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.